of Savannah Ambazonia Defense Forces, Capo Daniel. Capo, thank you so very much for joining us here on SABC News, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for having me
Yeah, you're welcome. You know, when we hear about school shootings and, you know, young learners being killed at schools, you know, this is something that we often hear in the US. You know, it's not something that we generally hear on our continent. Talk to us about this incident. You know, we saw the short clip there that we played here on SABC News, but take us through what's happened and really what you think this is really all about. I do hear that the incident is being blamed on separatists in the area. What exactly do you take out of what's happened there?
This is really a horror movie. We are watching what is happening in the Cameroons, and I have watched, we discussed the videos, and being a command officer of one of the biggest forces in Ambazonia, and this is a tragic, and it is happening behind the curtains of the international media. It is not being reported across Africa, neither is it being reported across the world. There have been this war for the restoration of the southern Cameroon. I think the education sector have been in the middle of this war. We have tried to interview some of the local people there. I've spoken to two of the parents who lost their children during this attack. We have spoken to one teacher and many people who live around the vicinity. The area this incident happened is in Kumba, an area that is strongly held by the Cameroon military. According to witness report around that area, there had been Cameroon military patrol around that school and unusual activities of the Cameroon military around that vicinity. We heard that 6 gunmen came on motorbike in a convoy, which nobody could imagine that you could have those type of activity, and it has been suspected that this was the setup arranged by the Cameroon military to kill these students in order to turn the local population against the resistance of Cameroon rule in the former British Cameroon territory.
Apart from obviously condemning the incidents, which, you know, when something horrific like this happens, we'll obviously hear governments condemning violence and so forth. But apart from that, what has been the word from government in terms of doing something about it? Because we wouldn't want a situation like this to become, you know, a norm in Cameroon.
Unfortunately, this is becoming the norm. Just on the 5th of this month, in a small town in the Atlantic state called Bali, there were about close to 48 students that were also arrested by the Cameroon military and executed. Their bodies were dumped into the river. Activists on the ground have interviewed the local colonial mayor of that city, who acknowledged that the military indeed round up these youth and just execute them. This has become the normal practice in Cameroon. We have also seen in Garbu on February 14 this year that the Cameroon military moved with its militia, because they now use militias in areas that they cannot really control, to attack students, young children as early as 5 months old in Garbu and execute them. They have launched some investigation. The government of Cameroon have acknowledged their involvement in those killings and many, many more killings. We are now talking about more than 20,000 people executed, killed. It is systemic. This is what we saw in Rwanda happening before our eyes, and the African Union is silent, the African press is silent, and the whole narrative around these killings have been distorted. And I could hear from your presentation how you could call it an issue in Cameroon. A lot of Africans have to be reminded constantly that Cameroon is a union of 2 separate countries that came together, and this is a struggle of one of those part of Cameroon, the former British Cameroon, trying to exercise their right of self-determination to exit out of that union, and they are being brutally crushed in front of our eyes, and there is nobody talking about it. It is a sad situation in Ambazonia today.
I mean, it's really quite unfortunate that there's silence on the part of the AU, Capo, but In terms of retaliatory attacks, are we hearing anything on the ground? You know, when incidents like this happen, people become very angry and they fight back. What are you hearing on the ground?
We are now afraid that there can be retaliatory action against French Cameroon citizens that are residing in our territory. They have been called for attacks against their citizens. We have been trying to restrain our population and our military forces that have been resisting Cameroon rule over our territory. And we are really at the crossroads. If there is no intervention, if there is no peacekeeping force to separate both sides, we are afraid this thing is going to escalate. We are going to have another genocide in our hands. It's tragic. The issue concerning school, because the people of the southern Cameroons do not want the Cameroon government to impose its school educational facility in our territory. So the school have become a battle of sovereignty. So we have the Cameroon government trying desperately to use this type of covert operations in this school in Tiango to turn the local population against the revolution. They have been using this type of tactics time and again. And we really need a fact-finding mission on the ground. We desperately have been failed by the international community that have failed to invoke the right to protect. And this problem is still being looked as a regular problem between the citizens in a single country, whereas the people on the ground, they are fighting for their independence. They want to exit a union that was never consummated, and they are caught in this crossfire. It is a tragic place to be. It is just so saddening to see these happenings across our territory. It happens on a day-to-day basis. And the Cameroon government will choose when the international community can have access to these areas. We really want the international community to be on site to witness this happening. This is not the first time, unfortunately. As I said, just on the 5th of this month, 48 students were rounded up in Bali, executed, their body dumped into a riverside. Nobody is saying anything about it. There is no accountability. It's a very sad time to be an African and watch this happening. It's really, really sad. This is not acceptable.
Yeah. All right, Capo Daniel, thank you very much for joining us. No doubt we'll be touching base with you again. It's not an issue that we're ignoring here at SABC News, and certainly we'd like it to get the attention that it deserves. Thank you for giving us your time and for speaking on the issue for us, Capo.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's Capo Daniel, Deputy Chief of Savannah Ambazonia Defense Force there in Cameroon, after that sad incident where 6 learners were shot and killed at a school. We'll certainly stay on that story. Well, hundreds of people